We bring to you the case of T, a 4-year-old boy from Himachal Pradesh who came to us with recurrent episodes of diarrhea. The first episode was at 2.5 years of age. He came to PGI with the complaints of diarrhea from 30 days, vomiting for the first 5 days, progressive weakness over the last 7 days, and one episode of generalized tonic-clonic convulsion 1 day prior to presenting to PGI. The diarrhea was large volume, 6 per day, explosive with flatulence, foul smelling, greasy with no mucus or blood. The vomiting was just for the first 5 days, non-bilious, non-projectile, with no diurnal variation. He had progressive weakness, which was symmetrical, with no respiratory complaints. He was not able to stand, then sit over a period of 7 days. For these complaints, he got admitted to the Kullu Regional Hospital, where he received IV fluids, antibiotics, and over there he had one episode of generalized tonic-clonic convulsion, which was supposedly thought to be due to low sodium or low sugar. And in view of the persistent complaints, he was referred to PGI. There was no contributory history, other history. Family history was also not contributory, except for the fact that the first sibling of this child died at 1 year of age with sudden bout of vomiting, enlarged tongue, lethargy, and difficulty to swallow, a possibility of angioedema. Rest of the histories were non-contributory.
So now I think we have a case, 2.5 years old male child who came with the history of chronic diarrhea, which was acute onset, associated with the acute onset of muscular weakness, and he had one attack of generalized tonic-clonic convulsion. Now, what are the possibilities? I think from the floor, pediatricians or students, what are the possibilities? What are the possibilities? One at a time. Hypokalemia. Okay, what else? What about chronic diarrhea? What is the etiology for chronic diarrhea? What could be the... What deficiency? Fructose deficiency. Anybody else? Malabsorption. But malabsorption has to be secondary to something. It's a big thing. Celiac, cystic fibrosis, yes. What else? Pancreatic insufficiency. Okay, beta lipoproteinemia, yes. Any other possibility? Okay, I think we go to the panelists. Maybe Dr. Fazal, you can start with, yes.
As a pediatrician, we should think first chronic diarrhea, large volume, is a small intestine intolerance.
Yeah.
Vomiting, stomach intolerance.
Very
Go
good.
for anatomical diagnosis instead of going for high-fi differential beta lipoproteinemia, celiac disease. This is etiological diagnosis. You should have an anatomical diagnosis first.
So this is a small bowel diarrhea. This is what you...
Large volume
Okay. Etiology? Any etiological
we
fact?
can go ahead with further
Okay. So what are the
some
possibilities?
electrolyte imbalance is happening, that's giving rise to muscle weakness.
Okay, I think Dr. Madhuri, you can show the
Are
causes.
these different episodes of diarrhea, or has child has been continuing to have diarrhea?
Yeah,
from-
1 month. 1 month. Yeah,
The
continue.
total duration is 1 month.
Yeah, 1 month.
And
Yes.
just go back to your previous slide. If you look at the stools, it's like a malabsorption stool, isn't it?
Yeah,
Large
malabsorption.
volume, explosive,
Yes.
flatulence, foul
Yes,
smelling,
yes.
greasy.
Yes, sir.
It's a
Basically a malabsorption.
Yes,
It's an acute malabsorption starting at 2.5 years of age.
Yeah.
And with failure to thrive,
Yeah.
with weight loss or whatever.
Okay, obviously, there is a weight loss, but anyhow,
And
examination
if
will
you
tell.
further describe about the stools, okay, whether it's blood,
No
mucus,
blood.
large
No.
volume, bulky stools, then we can think of carbohydrate malabsorption or protein malabsorption or fat.
Okay, so that's fine. Let's go.
So just as
So what are the-
discussed, for the chronic diarrhea, we thought of initially some protracted infections, sequential infections like Salmonella, E. coli, Giardia, Clostridium difficile, antibiotic-associated diarrhea, possibly secondary lactose intolerance, celiac disease, primary or secondary immunodeficiencies.
So this was the order of thought we had. Actually, next, go ahead. So progressive weakness, yeah. So could be because of, you can
The
tell?
hypokalemia, hypophosphatemia, malnutrition, myopathy, all of these could cause progressive weakness in this child. The one episode of generalized tonic-clonic seizure, since meningitis was ruled out, we thought of low sodium or low sugars as a possibility. He did not have any further episodes of convulsions and was neurologically normal.
So I think up till now, because since we had only on the history, I think these possibilities seem to be very likely here. Anyhow, let us look at the examination. Yes, yeah, tell.
This was a 2.5-year-old child with anthropometry, which was near normal, almost like 13 kg, 92 centimeters, falling between 50 to 85th centile. He had some dehydration at presentation, signs of rickets were present, pallor was there, clubbing grade 1, knuckle hyperpigmentation, and there was some perianal desquamation without any redness. On systemic examination, the per abdomen was generalized distension, but no organomegaly or no evidence of free fluid. The bowel sounds were normal. Central nervous system examination, higher functions were normal. The muscle bulk was decreased to tone reduced in all 4 limbs, power 3/5 with deep tendon reflexes being depressed.
So what are the possibilities now after examination? Now history and examination is before you. Yeah, show the show next. Yes. So again you have a chronic diarrhea which is malabsorptive in nature, gaseous abdominal distension, anemia, rickets, clubbing and muscle weakness. So what are the possibilities now? Okay, celiac. Yes. Any other possibility from the floor? Please come out because this is some common garden type of problem which we are dealing with. Any other possibility? Maybe Dr. John, you will like to add some? Celiac, yes. Any other? Dr. Desai?
Actually, I'm an adult gastroenterologist, so I don't deal with so small.
But this is the
we
setting.
clearly have malabsorption.
Yes.
Clubbing may be in favor of inflammatory bowel disease or a celiac disease. So no change in the diagnosis that Dr. Mathai has
Sure.
said.
This rickets was clinically obvious.
Rickets was called. It was a rather healed rickets in this. Yes. No, I think go ahead. We have no time. So possibilities of immune deficiency, then small bowel bacterial overgrowth, and then of course celiac. And obviously you have to understand this patient had weakness, had problems, so therefore crisis possibly because of the celiac. So next, what are the investigations? Dr. Fazal, one should go ahead with maybe from the floor first. Yeah. What are the investigations should be done in a case like this to reach to a conclusive diagnosis, keeping in mind the investigation, the diagnostic possibilities we have kept in this patient? Stool. Malabsorptive diarrhea, chronic diarrhea, agreed stool, but at least hemogram chahiye nahi chahiye? So I think let us, maybe Dr. Fazal, you will like to say something?
First, as child is well growing, okay, if you see here, his percentile growth is very good,
Yes.
but he has lot of deficiency. In a good growth, we see rickets.
Yes.
It's not atrophic rickets, it's a developing child rickets.
Right.
And first we have to document a malabsorption. You can do a stool routine examination for fat globules. You can see under one cover slip, if it is more than 8 to 10 fat globules, there is a fat malabsorption. Once if you have that, if you are thinking more of celiac disease, further investigates towards celiac workup.
Maybe I think with the shortage of time we can go ahead. What she has. Yes. Yeah.
So we did the investigations. We found a high total leukocyte count with high neutrophils and thrombocytopenia. On his biochemistry,
But
he
his
had
hemoglobin was also low, 10 gram, 10.7.
so the initial
last one.
hemoglobins of 12 could be attributed to the dehydration that he was having. Subsequently, it fell down. He also had low sodium, low potassium, low phosphorus, low albumin, and transaminosemia.
Just go a little slow. I mean,
What?
go a little slow, I said.
Yes.
You're not able to.
Yes.
This
Go
was
back to
his-
the previous slide. Let's just see.
Previous
the
slide,
investigation.
sure.
Sodium is?
So sodium, like initial value we had was 129, fell to 119, and then subsequently on correction came
there were-
up to 132.
2 reports of low sodium. In fact, this child was treated with low sodium in the periphery also. Yes.
So we think this
Yeah.
seizure may have been because of the
Yeah,
low sodium.
Yes.
yeah.
Even the potassiums were low, 1.1 was the lowest.
Go
that was
ahead,
there.
go ahead.
This is the blood gas that was there, which was suggestive of metabolic acidosis. 3 stools for versus parasites, fat globules were done, Clostridium difficult toxin assay was done, urines were done, retronegative, vitamin D and urine tests were all
And look at
normal.
here, vitamin D was 70. Actually, this child had received vitamin D in the previous hospital, so that's was, yes.
Just one clarification about this Clostridium difficile assay. It is said that the children, or sorry, infant under the age of 3 months, even if it is positive, we don't
Yeah,
really.
agreed.
So that
Agreed,
is one
very-
important point
Yeah.
that we should
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, this is 2.5 years, but you are right, very right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's-
yes,
Yes.
thank you.
The other investigations, the sugars were normal. ECG was showing flat T waves, probably due to the low potassium. Chest X-ray and abdominal X-ray was normal. Ultrasound was also not revealing anything. CT brain was done in view of the seizure, which was normal. So here we have.
So now we have a 2.5 years old child with chronic non-infective diarrhea possibly, and muscle weakness, some dehydration, metabolic acidosis, hypokalemia, hyponatremia, transmagnesemia. Any other investigation you like to ask, maybe Dr. John? You started with
Was
one-
all this muscle weakness and all improved with correction?
Yeah,
or-
yeah, it improved over the time.
So by the time the child comes to you, everything is,
No, it was still there. Weakness was still
in spite
there.
of the potassium
Yeah.
Yes.
being corrected, the muscle weakness was
No,
there.
no, that will be telling subsequently. But what are the tests you will ask now? Because since you started with one diagnosis coming from south, so you started with celiac. Would you like to screen for celiac or not?
Yeah, I think so. Since the
Yeah.
patient is from the north, then
So
we
I
just
think
go straight to celiac.
you can show them.
So we did the urine. We did the urine pH. It was 5.
Okay, Agit.
The upper GI endoscopy was showing. Yes, sir.
And this. So, speak out. So there was subtotal villus atrophy on biopsy. That's March 2V. Next.
No, one
Next.
issue I want to raise here. We often get the normal in this lab is 18. Usually it is 15
Five,
to 20.
six times, yeah. Nearly.
Suppose here it was clearly more than 100. But supposing if it is say 25,
Yes.
what do you all do? That's what I want
No,
to know.
again, we have to go ahead with the upper GI endoscopy. If you show villus atrophy to this extent, then one has to consider, and one can think of other tests also, which I think we'll highlight in a little while.
Hello.
Yes. So, speak
So
out.
we have a case with chronic diarrhea and multiple nutrient deficiencies. So with the investigations that we had, we made a diagnosis of celiac disease. He also had metabolic acidosis, hypokalemia, low sodium and hypophosphatemia. Celiac disease with crisis was a final diagnosis.
So, how to manage this type of patient? Maybe Dr. Fazal, maybe from the floor. Yes. Anybody would like to say something? This patient had some dehydration that needs to be corrected. And what else? What about potassium, sodium, phosphate, and so on, which were so low? Maybe I think she can tell. Yes.
So the dehydration was corrected with Ringal lactate 75 ml per kg over 4 hours with maintenance fluids. Sodium got corrected with the fluid deficit correction itself. Required a potassium infusion of 0.3 MEq per kg per hour. Had suspected sepsis. We saw that the counts were low. Required antibiotics, imipenem, vancomycin. Was counseled and started on gluten-free diet. A gradual low lactose diet was also given. He was given multivitamin supplements, and iron was started after the diarrhea became passive. All the fluid and electrolyte disturbances got corrected over time. The diarrhea became passive on day 6. The weakness also improved and became normal by day 10. Is followed up in celiac disease clinic. Has gained good height and weight over 1 year. However, poor compliance with gluten-free diet over a couple of months was there, and this is how the child again landed up with two more episodes at 3.5 years of age. That was 1 year after, where he presented with again almost the similar complaints of diarrhea, initially fever, progressive weakness, and he presented again with almost the same features of weakness with signs of healed rickets. We had again a normal hemogram. Low potassium was again seen. Metabolic acidosis was again seen. This time the TTG again had shot up, which had come down before. It had become 50. Immunoglobulin profile was within normal range. We did an HLA-DQ2, which was positive. Vitamin D this time had come down to 7.76. Thyroid functions were normal. Blood culture were normal. This time again, a diagnosis, this child had severe hyponatremia, which was not getting treated easily. We also thought of Addison's crisis in this child. Did a serum cortisol and ACTH level, but which turned out to be normal. So again, this time we had to think of a diagnosis of celiac crisis, and the child was treated on the same lines.
So interestingly, this patient was, initially following gluten-free diet very regularly, and therefore he gained weight and height. But for last few months, he was not complying with the GFT, and hence he came with the similar status what he came with in the beginning actually. And that's how, because we had a very hard time to, make him survive during second time. That's why we have even to do the serum cortisol, ACTH levels, and so on, which were normal. We thought of possibly there may be a dysonium crisis associated, but however, there was no evidence. Now, next.
Recounseling was done for strict GFD, and again the same management of fluid and electrolyte was done. He's been presently complying to his gluten-free diet and no further episodes, is growing well with a height of 106 and weight for 6 kg. We can see that the dip was there in the weight in between on poor compliance, and the height has been well. When do we suspect celiac? This is for all of us, as general pediatricians, that it is something that we need to suspect when very common, almost 50% of children come to OPD with these complaints of chronic abdominal pain, cramping, distension, chronic intermittent diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, chronic constipation not responding to usual treatment. So we should suspect celiac and offer a simple test to them. Growth failure, weight loss, short stature, iron deficiency anemia, delayed puberty, amenorrhea, recurrent aphthous stomatitis, dermatitis herpetiformis, repetitive fractures, unexplained abnormal liver biochemistry, chronic fatigue. There's a list of symptoms and signs, but which if we keep in mind, we should
Next,
screen.
last slide. please.
Yeah, but out
Children-
of these, which are the ones that you would like to stress on? I think there are too many there. Maybe growth failure, short stature.
Growth failure,
iron
short stature is
deficiency,
there,
anemia.
iron deficiency, anemia,
Yeah. I
delayed
think 3 or
puberty.
4, I think, yeah, I
All
think
those
it-
things are very commonly encountered in day-to-day practice. I think we have to bind up this case now. Now,
Just
so
one
take-
comment on that.
So,
Nowadays we are seeing even obese children.
obese,
where
yeah,
we
yeah,
can
that's another
actually-
thing. Yeah, obese children are also coming with. And look at the beauty of this child having a normal growth. Look at, he was 92 centimeters at 2.5 years, and his weight was 13 kg. Even despite of the 1 month symptoms of malabsorptive diarrhea and so on, so were there. He had lost weight. His growth was essentially normal, and still celiac. You can imagine.
He's come in a crisis.
Yeah, he came in crisis. Yeah.
That's-
So,
So
speak
children
up.
with chronic diarrhea do suspect celiac. There's a simple screening test, TTG and IgA. Acute complications of chronic diarrhea, think celiac crisis, and any child with chronic diarrhea with acute presentations, screen for metabolic derangements and infections and treat them. Thank you.
I think the message is that celiac disease in case of chronic, that's a classical manifestation. Only problem here was there were complications of hyponatremia, hypokalemia, and even hypophosphatemia and so on. So these were the things which were taking us away from usual diagnosis of celiac. That's why we had in fact purposely kept this TTGA in the end actually. So that was the first thing to do in this patient. In fact, whenever any sick child is coming in the emergency with chronic diarrhea, our first thing is to withdraw gluten actually. There and then, we can ask the parents to take away everything pertaining to, wheat products and so on and so forth. Because this may be celiac crisis in a given situation.
One
Yes.
more thing.
Could you
do we
highlight
see a
the role
celiac
of DG?
Children
Yes.
with no diarrheas?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
that's a
50%.
constipation.
50% patients
of
with
them, they
us
can
are
present with
atypical
normal
having.
stools.
Yeah.
Could you
Yes.
highlight the role of the newer test which has come in, the DGP test? which
DGP,
they're doing?
anti-DGP,
And
yes.
because many a times, unless we do an IgA level, your TTG, IgA may be falsely
but
low.
Problem is, madam, this test is a bit costly at this moment. It's costing around-
Irrespective of the cost. So in
Yeah.
Bombay City, people have
Anti-DGP,
lot
you-
of money. They
yeah,
spend
you
5,000 in a restaurant.
You can get it.
No, but no.
Nahin,
Irrespective of the cost, we need to know for a person who can afford
No,
it.
I agree
please.
with you. I agree with you fully that the anti-DGP can be done. Those who can afford, it can be done.
But
And that
below
will
age
avoid-
2 is the sensitivity specificity
Of-
of the DGP test. Below age 2, I was told the sensitivity specificity is not so good.
I think it's a very good, it's comparable with the TTGA. There's no problem, but only TTGA problem is this IgA-based test. So
Yeah.
you have to do serum IgA and
with the
TTG at the
TTG,
same
no?
time.
But with the DGP, you don't need to do it.
There's no need.
So therefore, it actually saves cost because instead of
Yeah.
doing 2 tests, you'll end up doing 1 test.
If it is available, you can do it. There's no.
No.
See, we are from celiac belt, both of us, Dr. Thapa and myself.
See a lot of
No, we just listen. Please do TTGA. It is the best test, it is cheaper, reproducibility is very good here in India. Those where your suspicion is very high, there you may do an IgA. And if IgA is normal, sir, IgA is less deficient, then
Then
certainly
you
TTG can be negative.
Then-
Going to DGP, we have not reached to this stage. See, we make guidelines for the whole country. We are on the big panel.
John, you stay.
Why
There's
are we
one
give the
more case.
opinions? So therefore, we should not get lured by this DGP. Then you will tell me give SPCAN guidelines, if you see today, they are all horrible guidelines, and we have told the experts in Delhi itself, to those who have made it, this is not good guideline, because they say HLA-DQ2, do DQ8, because they want to avoid biopsies. Simple thing is, TTG, IgA, duodenal biopsy is mandatory as of now in India.
Yeah,
Sir,
thank you. Yeah, sure.
we don't
In a
do.
city
We are
like
dealing,
Bombay,
see, I will
very
tell you,
few
we are seeing hundreds of celiac disease. Listen to me. Hundreds of celiac disease patients we are seeing. We have not gone to the DGP level so far. Even you see there North India, we have hundreds of cases. Maybe on our roll 700, 800, he may have 1,000 cases of celiac disease.
Yeah, agreed. But anyhow, if there is IgA deficiency, then we can go for this anti-DGP antibodies. There's nothing against it.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think I call upon Dr. Jagdish Menon now. I think,
Yes, that is what I wanted to ask them. Yeah, so less than 2 years, IgA deficiency, we are finding, we are doing it regularly and we're
even
finding
for
good
that
results.
matter, don't forget EMA is also very good below 2 years. Yeah, that's
problem is coming
yeah.
because in Europe they are trying to avoid biopsy.
Yes.
I don't think we have reached that
Yeah.
stage in India. We should
Yeah.
just stick to our.
See, in a child who comes with chronic malabsorption because of a celiac, you do a biopsy, you're going to get villus atrophy. So plus this. So what happens is with the biopsy also you're nowhere unless you do a test. So
No,
might
but
as well do a specific
you
test.
don't get
Below
total
2
villus
years if
atrophy,
DGP is sensitive and
I
specific, why
think-
not do it? IgA deficiency is one of the commonest deficiencies that we see. It's not uncommon to, of all the immunodeficiencies, IgA
I
deficiency is the
think
commonest
let's-
immunodeficiency.
Let,
So I've had out
Dr.
of the
Surinder, I
very
think
small
let
number
us
of cases
discuss
I've
this
had,
point.
I've had 3 children with IgA deficiency and they were missed only because they were IgA deficient and IgA was not done.
ICMR task force report which says IgA deficiency in India is very less.
All the other immunodeficiencies,
okay,
IgA
okay, that's
deficiency
fine.
is common.
That's fine.
Task force says report.
We have deliberated n number of times. All experts discussed here. IgA deficiency is not a level. Understand me? Now I say it clearly. IgA level less than 5 milligram per deciliter is actually the deficiency possibility. Not less than 25, 10, 15. It is uncommon, very uncommon. We are seeing so many cases. Believe us.
Okay. That's it. That point is well taken, Dr. Surinder. I think let us go with
Can
the
we-
second. Yeah. Okay, okay.
You have one more case, is it?
Yeah, you can start. Yeah. One more, yes. That's why I was asking. Okay. You can start with.
So good evening. The second case is an 8-year-old girl who came to us with following complaints of pain abdomen, which lasted since last 6 months, with associated history of excessive straining at defecation since last 6 months, which is actually followed by history of loose stools for last 10 days and also blood and mucus in stools. So coming to the chain of events in the illness, the child had pain abdomen, which was dominantly in the infraumbilical region, which was actually severe in quality, non-colicky, and having nocturnal exacerbations, which had a waxing and waning course, which used to respond to analgesic drugs. The child also had history of excessive straining with soft stools, no constipation, and associated mucoria was there, and no increased toilet setting. And subsequently, since last 1 to 2 weeks, the child had history of loose stools, which was actually watery 10 to 15 times in a day, and with nocturnal stools and no mucus or blood. Subsequently, after 3 days of the onset of this loose stool, the child started having mucus and blood. The stool volume actually decreased. And the child was treated with oral antibiotic from outside hospital, and the child had no relief, and the child was referred to our center subsequently. So the child had no history of any similar illness before, no history or feature suggestive of intestinal obstruction, and no history of any recurrent episodes of dehydration, and no history of any growth faltering. And there is no excessive intake of antibiotic or any history of NSAIDs, and no history of any loss of weight, loss of appetite, night sweats, or increased fever. That is the constitutive symptoms, and no history of any recurrent multisystemic illnesses. And the natal and the family history was actually non-contributory, and the development of the child was normal, and the BCG score was normal.
So we have a 8 years old girl child with chronic abdominal pain, with painful staining with the mucoria, and then acute onset of inflammatory diarrhea. Now, what could be the etiologies in this patient? What would be the possibilities exactly from the floor, from the audience side? IBD. Okay, one is IBD. Crohn's. Any other possibility? take in account the 8 years old child with pain abdomen, painful straining, and then of course mycorrhea followed by acute inflammatory diarrhea. Tuberculosis, yes. Lead poisoning. Anyhow, lead poisoning, blood and mucus hota hai, by the way. Okay.
There's no dysentery.
Okay. Maybe Dr. John, any
Yeah, you can add amoebiasis to it. if you want.
amoebiasis, right?
Okay, more.
Okay. What else? Sir, decisive.
What we have is the history of involvement of the rectum,
Yes.
remaining colon, and possible small bowel.
Yes.
So, with this combination, it is more likely to be inflammatory bowel disease.
Inflammatory bowel disease. Dr. Fazal?
Yeah, I agree with them. It's,
Okay.
Though we have to keep in mind sometime normal period and plus some few extra stools with mucus leaking out stools, constipation and diarrhea.
Okay.
This kind of normal behavior at
Okay.
8 years of age.
Okay.
Chronic
Other than
abdominal pain is for
pathological.
how long?
Around
Chronic
6
abdominal
months.
pain
6
for
months.
6 months duration, sir.
Diarrhea for?
So this since last 2 weeks actually.
Okay.
What are the possibilities? Go
So
ahead.
coming on to the clinical possibilities in this child.
What is this here?
Again, that slide is. I think,
Hmm?
Okay.
No, what are the possibilities?
So the
Maybe
clinical
again
possibility
how?
that we kept in the child include in the infectious causes tuberculosis,
नहीं,
amoebiasis.
possibilities रखो ना, इसको नहीं दिखाओ.
So tuberculosis, amoebiasis. In case of inflammatory disorders, we kept possibility of inflammatory bowel disease. In immunodeficiency, retrovirus infection, and chronic granulomatous disease. Autoimmune disorders, it could be a Behçet syndrome since long duration. And also solitary rectal ulcer syndrome, since the
Solitary
child had
rectal
actually straining.
Yes. Because he had a pain, he had a mycorrhea followed by, blood and mucus.
But was there a
Yeah.
history of constipation
actually,
during
it
this
is
abdominal
missing in
pain?
No. There was no history.
And that's very unlikely.
Okay.
So
But now the possibilities, since
you
there's.
just had an acute history for
Yeah.
a week with a past history of constipation, solitary rectal ulcer would have come.
Okay. There is one finding which is missing. There was no long sitting in the toilets and all, which was not there in this patient. That's the classical of SRU, in fact. No, examination? Go ahead.
So on examination, the child had a normal anthropometry, and the child was anemic. Rest of the findings was actually normal. No stigma of any autoimmune disorders. No stigma of chronic liver disease. Systemic examination, abdomen-wise, the abdomen was soft and non-tender. The liver was just palpable 2 centimeter. Below the right costal margin, it was a soft liver. And rectal examination was actually tender with no mass per rectum. There was mucus and blood staining on the fingers. And rest of the systems was normal.
So after history and examination, chronic abdominal pain again with tenesmus with colitis. Why I am saying colitis because blood and mucus was seen on the
Yeah.
finger glove. So therefore, what are the
Tenesmus
possibilities?
means that the rectum is
Yes.
inflamed.
So
it's
again,
something
what are the possibilities from the floor? From the audience, anybody? Apart from what you thought earlier, or you want to keep all those possibilities which you have already told, or you like to change? Now, colitis is in picture because there was a blood and mucus and it was painful. So painful PR examination, you have to think of colitis actually.
Any fissures or anything,
No.
anything at the skin tags or anything in the perianal region or nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing there.
So anything, Dr. Fazal?
Yeah, it's a colonic and rectal involvement.
Yes.
Most likely inflammatory,
IBD.
and we have
Okay.
to work up further.
So inflammatory bowel disease, what you, Dr. Desai, you?
So basically, with this, I don't think we can ever go more than this clinically. So we need to have
Okay.
the testing.
So what are the possibilities?
Sorry.
Again, blocked?
Yes, sir.
All his possible,
It is not getting
all his
animated actually.
possibilities are disappearing.
Okay, what are the possibilities? No, tell the possibilities.
So the clinical possibilities will remain as we had done after the history. The only condition that is out is a Behçet's disease because the child didn't have any oral or any genital ulcers. So the rest of the
So
clinical
rest of the
possibility
possibilities
remains
remain
in this child.
same, what we discussed
No, were there
earlier.
oral ulcers?
No.
No.
There was no
So
oral
therefore,
genital ulcers.
Behçet's was out actually. Okay, fine. What are the investigation we like to ask? In a situation like this, what are the investigations? Anybody? We were thinking of IBD, tuberculosis, and so on, so immune deficiencies. Okay, tell them. Show them.
Acha wants a diagnosis.
Hey, but investigation, nothing is coming up. What's the problem?
There's some problem.
Huh? pen drive है आपके पास?
No, sir, it is not to the drive actually. वो software में some mismatch is there.
I think the slides are getting stuck, I think.
So there's a problem with the. अब आ गया.
You have to show like this maybe.
नहीं enlarge करो यार, नहीं हो रहा.
नहीं, वो during enlarging it is getting disappeared.
Okay. Show it like.
Yeah.
So these are the possibilities.
That we kept.
Okay, go ahead now.
So on investigation,
On investigation,
on
yeah.
investigation, child had actually a microcytic anemia with a raised TLC and a raised CRP showing features of inflammation. The bilirubin was normal with a raised transaminases with a negative viral markers and negative the autoimmune markers. The serum electrolytes was normal in this child. Actually, this is coming.
आगे चलो. No, it's coming. Yes. Okay.
Some of the slides are coming, some of them are unfortunately getting missed. I will do it for some.
Yeah.
So
अभी
then on the etiological investigation, the blood culture stool worker was actually normal in this child. CDVC was negative. Calprotectin was not available at that time, and NBT, which was done for chronic granulomatous disease, was negative. The retro was negative. ANCA and ASCA was negative. TB work was negative. TTJ was less. It was done due to the fact that the child had an asymptomatic increase in OTPT.
Just tell us the importance of stool calprotectin.
So it is one of the markers of chronic inflammatory diarrhea. So it can be raised, it is not a specific marker for inflammatory bowel disease, it can be raised in Clostridium difficile infection. Initially, historically, it was used to differentiate between an inflammatory bowel disease versus an functional GI disorder. So that was the first instance in which the stool for calprotectin was actually given. So it can be used as a follow-up for monitoring in response in children with inflammatory bowel disease.
Go ahead.
Just one question to the panelists. Can stool protectin go up in an infective diarrhea?
Yeah.
Or is it only a tubercular diarrhea, or is it specific for inflammatory bowel disease?
No, calprotectin is a non-specific test which basically represents the WBCs in the stool.
Yeah.
So we have a reasonable experience, and what we have seen is that it can be elevated in infective diarrhea. The maximum range of calprotectin that they report laboratory is 1800 microgram per gram. So in acute diarrhea, most of the time it does not reach the level of 1000 or 800 or so, but rarely it can happen. And of course, there are other causes of rise in the fecal calprotectin.
And also during follow-up.
Yes, and then
Has a more prognostic value.
As
than
an
Okay.
etiology, you may be able to distinguish between acute and chronic, and then subsequent, maybe.
No, calprotectin may be raised even in
the
acute.
chronic,
Yeah.
the values will be much
Yeah,
higher.
yeah,
Whereas
much
in
high,
an
yeah.
acute, the levels
Okay,
may be lower,
okay,
maybe.
no,
Very good.
other way around.
I think go ahead.
So during the subsiding phase, we did a sigmoidoscopy only, which was actually showing a loss of mucosal shine and vascularity, and a friable mucosa, and also ulcerations with bleeds actually. So it's suggestive of grade 4 colitis actually. There was active bleeding. So, and on further investigation, ultrasound of abdomen was actually showing a thickening of the entire colon. Rest was normal. Upper GI endoscopy in this child was normal, including biopsy. Colonic biopsy was actually showing a mucosal ulceration with a crypt architectural distortion and florid inflammation that is visible. So this is the crypt abscess formation that is seen. This is the torrential inflammation that we can actually see in this patient with an architectural distortion of the crypts. So initially we thought of diagnosis of ulcerative colitis in this child, and subsequently he was started with treatment.
Have you not done full colonoscopy?
No, sir, we did it actually subsequently. Sir.
Subsequently.
It was during the subsiding time period of colitis.
Ulcerative colitis, you need to say what was the type of the ulcer,
Yes.
why there is ischemic area. All these things have to be told.
Yes, sir.
Now
Actually,
only sigmoidoscopy initially because child was sick at
acute
that
colitis
stage. Yeah.
phase में.
The activity index was high. Chalo.
So we started the child on IV antibiotics. Mesalamine was started and also nutrition support. And the child didn't have any response to these drugs basically. Then except for like the
Just one
inflammation.
second. What is the role of IV antibiotics in the treatment of ulcerative colitis?
Actually, one of the reasons for exacerbation of this condition is actually infection associated. We didn't have any C. difficile reactivity in this child also. So we thought that it would be like.
Is it recommended? What?
But maybe the situation, clinical situation are different for which it was used. Obviously, you wouldn't use it for if it is known severe ulcerative colitis, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 6 months, sir.
6.
6 months we don't expect infection as a presentation.
But anyhow, antibiotics were. Yeah.
So subsequently, we did a full-length colonoscopy, which was again showing excessive involvement of rectum and sigmoid, and there was fibril mucosa with deep longitudinal ulcers, loss of mucosal strain vascularity, and also cobblestoning, which was classically seen in this diagram basically. And the ileoscopy was also done in this child, which was actually normal. The IC valve involvement was there, and we did the deep biopsy this time, which was actually showing involvement of the muscularis mucosa also, but the rest of the histopathology was normal. So subsequently, in this child with features of deep longitudinal ulcers, cobblestoning, edematous IC valve, and no response to mesalamine, which is a soft pointer only, we kept the clinical possibility of Crohn's disease of the large bowel without any extraintestinal manifestation. And the child having a normal growth. This is basically the Montreal classification, A1, L2, B1. A1 showing an age of less than 16, L2 which shows only the dominant large bowel involvement, and B1 which shows a non-stricturing type of disease. So we did score the child according to the pediatric Crohn's disease activity index, which was equal to 30, which was a type of moderate disease. Coming on to the management of the index child.
So management, Professor Desai.
We have already given 5 ASA, probably maximize the dose to about 80 to 120 milligram per kg. If that does not help, then one would go to steroid and quickly azathioprine in this patient.
See, this child was very sick, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure we should wait too long on that, because you're saying child was very sick at admission, so we probably need to grade up and go to steroids earlier itself, rather than wait.
Yes, sir. So we started the child on prednisolone at 1.5 mg per kg and tapered after maintenance of 12 weeks and then stopped it. And actually the score got decreased. Mesalamine was continued because of the dominant large bowel involvement, which is actually mentioned as per the recommendation, nutrition advice, and also micronutrient supplement was given and growth monitoring was done in this child. Subsequently, during follow-up, the child had actually one amount of relapse during tapering of steroids, and which was associated with an infectious flare. So we treated with antibiotic and it got resolved. Mesalamine was stopped after a time period of 6 months. And the child once got admitted with us due to one history of dengue fever, from which she recovered without any symptoms. And the child was started on azathioprine, which was added and continued, which was a monotherapy. But subsequently, since last 1.5 years, she was found, last 2.5 years, she was found to have decreased growth. And
Azathioprine was started only after she relapsed?
No, sir. It
On
was
tapering,
it was actually during the tapering of Viceron we started azathioprine. Sorry.
It was not started on day.
And the child actually had four number of relapses in last 12 months. And that was actually temporarily resolving the antibiotics, and options of biological was given to them. And after analyzing the cause of exacerbation, the common cause include bacterial infections, Clostridium difficile, CMA infection, COX, and the inherent flare-up of the disease. So in 2014, again, due to relapse, she was admitted with us with a Crohn's disease activity index of 40, which again showed a moderate disease. Subsequently, she underwent a repeat upper GI endoscopy, which was actually normal. And the lower GI endoscopy, which was actually showing a linear ulcers, again loss of vascularity, and also cobblestoning was seen. And the biopsy was again done, which was suggestive of Crohn's. So for the exacerbation,
Scoping is showing ulcer in D1.
yes, the D1 was actually showing an ulcer.
Normal, yeah.
It is normal. The TB workup was done, which was actually negative. CMV was also done, which was negative. And the child again underwent CT angiography to look for the status of small bowel, which was actually normal. There was no involvement of small bowel in this child.
The CDI is only 40.
What?
CDI is only 40.
Yes, sir.
40.
Because
Index, activity index
more
is.
than 150 is abnormal. And
It's
It is
CDI. It's not.
activity index.
It's not
It's coming to
ulcerative.
moderate.
No, this is moderate.
It's a Crohn's disease
Crohn's
index.
disease activity index.
Activity index.
no,
Not the ulcerative.
no, CDI less than
Sir, I think they are meaning pediatric Crohn's disease
Crohn's
activity
disease
index. It is
PDI.
different from
not PDI.
adult.
Yeah,
Yeah,
PDI.
PDI.
So I think they missed the P there.
Yeah.
Crohn's disease activity.
Fair
He has
enough.
missed the P
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
PCDAI.
Yeah, PCDI. Yeah.
So the child was started on biologically the anti-TNF therapy of infliximab. According to the recommendation, first week 0th dose, followed by second week dose, and followed by 6-week dose. After which the symptoms, she actually showed a complete response, and she's on actually maintenance therapy. But she's having actually decreased height and weight gain. That is the major issue. And the child has actually combined this biological with the azathioprine, which is actually a recommendation. So subsequently, during start of this year, she landed up with a severe colicky pain abdomen, and on workup, the ultrasound was actually showing a cholelithiasis with cholelithiasis. So then subsequently, she underwent an MRCP also, which was actually showing the same finding. She was started on UDCA. Subsequently, her pain abdomen spontaneously subsided, and it was again documented with ultrasound that the stone has actually resolved from that region. So the ERCP was not done, which is the recommendation for treatment of cholelithiasis. So the growth, the major issue in this child now is actually the growth faltering. When she came to us, she had a 50 percentile of height and weight, but subsequently we can see the graph is actually faltering in both growth and height. But the GI symptoms are actually decreased in this child. This is the same CT enterography, which is actually showing a diffuse thickening of the enteric colon with increased vascularity and no small bowel involvement, no lymphadenopathy. The MRCP, which is actually showing intrahepatic biliary radical dilatations, is seen, and minor filling defect. There is no smooth tapering of this CBD below, and subsequently this filling defect, which is actually showing a distal CBD stone. So issues in this child include Crohn's disease of the colon, infectious flares, decreased growth, cholelithiasis, nutrition anemia, anemia of chronic disease, and delayed puberty. In fact, one of the ultrasound was showing a bulky body of pancreas. So we kept a clinical diagnosis of gallstone pancreatitis also in this child. So currently we are planning for to continue the immunomodulator therapy. Repeat.
Okay, you can go to the last slide. I think.
You made a mention saying fecal calprotectin is normal. Do you have the actual value there?
No, sir, I did not inserted the value actually.
Okay, go to the last slide.
Srini, put down that mic.
No, I think you leave this. Go to the last slide.
Carry home.
Because we have, yes.
So this is the take-home message. Basically, chronic inflammatory diarrhea, always suspect inflammatory bowel disease. Crohn's and ulcerative colitis can have an overlapping manifestation in children. Basically, less than 2 years of age, it can be extremely overlapping. Disease characterized by remission and relapses. Growth, anemia, systemic features are more seen in Crohn's disease. Immunosuppressants comprise the major treatment option. Biologicals are the most effective agents in severe and advanced Crohn's disease.
So
9 doses until. Yes.
But trust me, man.
No.
Sir, actually, they are getting it reimbursed, sir.
No, but trust me, if the patient is not improving in growth, and if your CT enterography on infliximab is showing you severe disease, I don't expect a normal fecal calprotectin or a normal colonoscopy.
Thickening is still there. Thickening you cannot take away. What you have seen is thickening. Otherwise, she is asymptomatic. She is otherwise
No,
improving.
we probably also, sir, need to document PCDA score.
No, agreed. We have to do colonoscopy on her and refine the,
Colonoscopy may or may not be required, sir, but an objective parameter during therapy, something like a PCDA will be useful.
Okay.
Sir, actually, the CT enterography was done during the beginning of infliximab therapy. We have not done subsequently.
Yeah, sure.
This child, so is it indeterminate colitis? Because we don't have any small bowel involvement, neither biopsy showed any granuloma, upper GI was normal.
No, there is. No, the duodenum is showing an ulcer.
Ulcer? IC wall was involved, not ileum.
No, thing is that, I think we should not go towards, because the colonoscopy, when total colonoscopy was done in this patient, she had a very classical features, a deep fissured ulcers with cobblestone appearance. I think we can't go away. Histopathology, all right, ulcerative colitis versus Crohn's will be mimicking. Yes, so it's a Crohn's. It's a colitis confined to, colon only. Yes.
History, it was more like
Yeah. Dr. Desai, you will like to comment on this patient regarding growth and other parameters?
One thing that if the fecal calprotectin is normal, as we believe that we repeat and it is normal, so the growth is clearly hampered. In such patients, in children, it is shown that either EEN or partial enteral nutrition would be useful. Supposing we have controlled the disease activity, I would think of putting the patient on nighttime feeds.
But I think the recommendations say that partial parental nutrition.
No,
does,
not parental, enteral.
Oh, enteral, partial enteral, I'm sorry. Partial enteral nutrition is not so effective actually as compared
No,
to
in certain group of
exclusive,
patients,
yes.
in certain group of patients,
Okay,
here child is eating,
yeah,
okay, we would first try with the enteral nutrition,
okay.
failing which, if supposing it's not growing, disease is controlled, maybe we would consider the exclusive
Has this
enteral.
child gone into remission
Yeah, now she is in remission.
and still not growing?
No, she'll not, she had received steroids earlier, possibly that's the problem.
Yeah.
She's still not growing, yes, yes.
So it may be the effect of the steroids and treatment.
Possibly
rather
what
than-
we are feeling is that this may be effect of the steroids, but we have to,
But if
you
it
know,
is-
think of growth hormone, supplements also in this patient because they can afford, parents can afford at this moment because they are both are employees, so we can
So, but
vouch
why
for
not
this.
give nutrition, enteral
Yeah,
nutrition?
agreed. That point is well taken, that we have to increase the nutrition part and also
Yeah, look
take
at
care
growth
of
hormone
growth
assay
hormone
as
supplement. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We are seeing only one tip of the iceberg
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Actually, lot of children now come. The rise in growth is very high in India. Young babies come, children with life is very difficult to treat. That here the things are different. Actually, the etiology is different in those patients. So it's very difficult. The very difficult thing what he has shown. Only thing I would say, I would have cut short this case in terms of investigation. Right segmentoscopy, I would do a segmentoscopy followed by full colonoscopy. I would not go for many of these investigations, take the biopsies, upper, lower, and then make the biopsy.
Probably should have
There's
been more
just
aggressive.
little difference of opinion here. Earlier, we used to believe that the child Crohn's disease behaves worse in children. Okay, the earlier studies had suggested that, but the last couple of studies have suggested that it does not behave worse than that in adults, and there are at least 2 studies to say that.
But we see, I mean, I think Dr. Chacha is very right. At this moment, we have quite a few cases who are having fistulizing disease, penetrating
Yes.
disease, and very bad to control these. I have 20 years.
But that is exactly what we face in
No.
the adults also.
No problem.
Versus children, there's a difference. Today we don't have that talk.
No,
I presented the data in IBD meeting at Chandigarh, it's a huge meeting on IBD exclusive. We show the involvement of the colon, the visualizing disease, the recurrences, early these what's called these complications occurring, then non-response to therapy is there in pediatric age. So I will take your point, maybe 2 studies have shown, but overall impression. And in India also we have Crohn's disease which is increasing in actually number, particularly on the south side. And now we are getting a change in whole world. Change is we are now seeing infantile IBD.
yes.
Which is a visualizing disease, very difficult to treat. Even our elastomies won't work at times. And you have to go for bone marrow transplantation because there's an ileus.
Those are different group of patients.
That's a different group.
These are
So therefore, there's a difficulty in actually treating. See what is there now, what to offer this child? Infliximab 7 doses they have given. What is the case?
No, agreed. They may, some of the patients may require alternate therapy. That's there, definitely.
Our problem
That
in
way.
pediatrics is essentially their growth and all that suffers. So it's
So-
a lot of misery with.
So actually growth, nutrition, all these things, and also treating difficult. Actually, it's different from that of the adult population. I think I thank all the panelists and the audience for interaction. Thank you very much.